So the first thing that you will do is you will take your two controller pieces, make sure they are together and lined up. There's no right side or wrong side to this project. Next, you're going to take the floss that is in your kit and you're going to thread it through the eye of the needle. If the ends start to fray, you can take a pair of scissors and trim off the edge so that way the edge is blunt again. Thread it through the needle and make sure that you have what's called a tail. So you will have two separate ends that are not tied together or connected. Then you will take the long end and you will tie a pretty big knot in the end of the long end. What I do is I make a loop and I put that little tail through the opening 2 or 3 times and then I pull it tight. You want your knot to be good size so it does not pull through the felt. So you see there I've knotted it once, and then I'm going to do that another time or two just to make sure that I've got a really good size knot on the end of this. Pulling it tight so the knot doesn't come undone. To begin stitching, I'm going to put the knot on the inside. So the very first stitch that I make, I'm going to go between the two pieces of felt and I'm going to pull my needle all the way through. And you see I've got my knot there. I'm going to tuck it between the two pieces of felt and then I'm going to start making my stitches. So this is called a simple whip stitch. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going around the outside edge and this will cinch the edges together and also it will create a barrier for the batting that we're going to put on the inside in a little bit. So you're always going to come up from the bottom and pull your needle up through the top, pulling it all the way through, and you want the stitches to be close together. The closer the stitches, the greater the strength and the less that the batting will come out. The nice thing about this stitch is that if you make one that's too big, you can put another one right next to it and it doesn't really matter. You want to pull kind of tightly to make sure that the stitches are close to the felt. You're going to do this around the outside, coming up through the bottom and pulling it through the top. If at any point your thread starts to get a knot in it or it starts to get tangled, you can let the thread with the needle dangle from the item and that will unravel the thread. You'll keep doing this all the way around the outside until you have about 2 inches left that is not stitched. If at any point your needle starts to get knotted, just let the needle dangle from the item. Now that we've got our 2-inch opening, we're going to grab our batting and we're going to put the batting into that opening and we're going to kind of use our fingers to make sure the batting is all the way in the corners. You don't want to have it too close to the end that you're still stitching on because it might get caught in your stitching. So make sure that you're pushing it all the way in using your fingers. After you're all done with your item, you can use your fingers. You can beat it on a corner of a table to kind of get the batting to move around inside of the item. So then what we're going to do is we're just going to finish stitching off this little bit of section that still remains, making sure that we're keeping our stitches close together. Again, if you end up with a tangle or a knot like I did here, you can just pull gently until the knot comes free. If you need to, you can always pull your needle out of the thread. You can pull that stitch out, get everything straightened back out, then you can rethread your needle and continue stitching where you left off. Again, if at any point your thread starts to get a little frayed, you can always cut off the thread and rethread your needle. Now that I'm getting close to where I originally started, I'm going to make sure that as I'm completing my last stitches, that I'm overlapping where I first started, so that way I don't leave any gaps in my stitching. As I get close to the overlapping, and I'm ready to make my final stitches, I will pull my needle up from the bottom like I've been doing, and instead of pulling it all the way through, I'm going to leave a small loop. So you'll see here that I've left a loop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go through that loop. As I put the needle through the loop, I'm going to pull it all the way through. And I'm going to pull it tight. And then I'm going to do that another 1 or 2 times in the same spot or close to the same spot. So that way I am making sure that I'm getting a nice tight knot in the spot where I'm ending my stitching. Now, after I've made my knots, I can cut it off right there. I can make a loop. I'll use this extra piece to make my knobs, all my buttons, and here's my finished game controller.